All right, everybody. Welcome to the Along the Watchtower podcast. I am LM Walker. Today is January the 8th, 2021. It's Friday. You've made it through another week. Congratulations. A lot has happened, continues to happen. And, what we like to do here is paint a picture, an overall macroscopic perspective, right? And then piece by piece, solve et coagula, we will, disassemble it and reassemble it and try and get as best an understanding as we can about what's going on around us. The reality, well, as best as we can see it, is, as we'll read, is that, some of the response or lack thereof from the Capitol Police and from the National Guard, from the Secret Service, uh, was due to a stand down, really, a stand down that was given by the Pentagon, stand down order, for allegedly optical reasons, which kind of makes sense. But given, the what looks like complicity in the videos, police officers, Capitol officers removing barricades and letting these guys pass through and etc., taking selfies with them, it's a little more than just hands off, than a hands off approach. So we'll learn about that. I also, I want to delve into a little bit more about China. Recently, well, I think every broadcast or every other broadcast, I end up talking just a little bit about China, its growing influence, more than influence. It'd be one thing if it was growing in popularity, notoriety, and thus becoming more influential. But it's becoming more overt in its saber rattling, in its growing, in trying to execute its growing prospects and aspirations worldwide. There's an article actually that I might cover that is called Coronavirus, Bioterrorism or Not, Who Wins? And what it's about, what it ends up being about really overall, is not necessarily pointing the finger at one person or another, one country or another, but overall, who has gained from all of this? Who has taken the most advantage of all of this? Who has been the most opportunistic during all of this? It's most important, right? Key bono, who gains, who wins, right? To look at that. And just like, they say when you look at drug dealers, when you look at the mob, when you look at any large organization for corruption, you follow the money. Well, it's a very, very similar thing with really anything that goes on geopolitically. You always look at who has gained and who is to gain from whatever took place. We will continue to cover the fallout from the Capitol Hill siege. And unfortunately, I saw, we all saw this coming, but as I mentioned, the increasing widespread, I don't want to say crackdown, because crackdown suggests that there's like illegality or malfeasance or something nefarious going on and it needed to be taken care of, and it was taken care of. There was a crackdown. Like, no, this is a suppression of the expression of free ideas, and I use that even to encompass dumb ideas. The whole idea of the freedom of expression of ideas is that there's no litmus for what kind of ideas can be expressed. You should be able to say dumb stuff. You should be able to say things that don't make sense. There doesn't necessarily need to be, I believe, there shouldn't be a criteria by which someone is allowed to speak. As long as you are not inciting hate or expressing, ideas or desires, trying to incite violence, say your dumb shit. Say all the things that have be a flat earther. Be an astronaut, an alien astronaut theorist. Be an anti-vaxxer. How does someone, if you want to get the vaccine, how does someone on YouTube, for example, in a YouTube video talking about why they think vaccines are bad, stop you from getting a vaccine? This is all about control of information and of narrative. Presenting alternative ideas, no matter how dumb, shouldn't be like illegalized. That's insane. Who is to determine what ideas are worthwhile or not? That has to be determined by people. So a person is sitting behind a computer with all of their fallibilities and issues, good or bad, happy or sad, and they get to determine, well, a body of them get to determine what can and cannot be said and proliferated. That's a scary prospect. So of course, during as a part of the fallout of all this, not only was Trump, well, temporarily banned, now he's permanently banned from Twitter. He's still temporarily banned from Facebook, as far as I can tell. People like Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell, the attorney who was at the forefront of the Kraken. Yeah. They also had their Twitters permanently suspended and banned. They've been banned permanently from Twitter. And, that's one thing. But Apple is cracking down on Parler. They're forcing Parler to do, a massive amount of censorious moderation. Not to say that moderation isn't needed, but we know what this means when this usually happens. So we'll read about that. But, excuse me, before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. I could always use the support. We're going to keep getting better, keep doing this, on a more comprehensive scale as much as possible. This is the next stage. I got lighting. Next, you're going to get a better mic, and then, I'll start to build out the play. It'll be nice. Well, it'll be good to watch, a chrysalis occur, and then from it I will emerge even more professional and even more dedicated, because I really do appreciate the ability to express my opinion, and that's really what it's about. And it's like, it really doesn't matter if like two people view it. Honestly, it doesn't matter if anyone views it, because if no one views it and it's still removed, that's just as bad as if a million people view it and it gets removed. The fact of the matter is that I'm not inciting hate or violence. I'm not being explicit. There's no reason why it should be removed. Just simply because of the content, the context in which I'm speaking should not be the litmus. Whether I'm an anti-vaxxer, a flat earther, an alien astronaut theorist, a tin foil hat wearing, black helicopter seeing Alex Jones listening to whoever, that's irrelevant. They are increasingly lowering the expectations of people in their ability to discern information. Now, that being said, that isn't to say that there isn't a plethora of low information voters and people. That's always been the case. That hasn't changed. But I digress. Let's get into it. I wanted to, because, there are people talking about, the police didn't act the same way with the Capitol besiegers as they did with BLM and Antifa. And I always have to, for me at least, I see a distinction between how police treat BLM, how police treat Antifa, and how police treated the Capitol besiegers. They were complicit with the besiegers. I don't want to go so far as to say helped them, but what I saw help. They just outright removed barricades. They just got out of the way, removed barricades, and just let them through. That's assistance. That's complicity. With Antifa, you've seen a hands-off approach, right? Portland police allow political brawlers to lob rocks and aluminum cans. This is actually they also do this with the Proud Boys as well. But Trump-supporting family from Astoria claims that they were attacked by Antifa while cops watch, and why Portland police stand by passively while leftists riot. This has also happened similarly with like the Proud Boys, and then they'll let Proud Boys and Antifa, Proud Boys and BLM fight. And we can try and make that distinction. Oh, well, I mean, it's only a section of the Proud Boys. It's not everybody, but I mean, there's still a sect of the Proud Boys. Whether they're a subsidiary or not, they're still fucking Proud Boys. But I understand making clear distinctions. I feel you. There's a sect of the Proud Boys that is their so-called military wing or whatever have you, militaristic wing, or I forgot what the terminology they used was. But that apparently their militant wing, that's what it is their white nationalist wing as well. So the overarching group of the Proud Boys they're not white nationalists, they're Western chauvinists. as Enrique Tarrio likes to so uneloquently put. So yeah, we can make that distinction, but there's still probably. He's like, it's fine though. It's fine. I understand. But that's what happens when you associate yourself with a political party or group, right? A politician or person. If you can stand by, an idea, right, and not have to worry about, who is standing with it, tainting the idea. The idea remains as pure as it is, whatever it is. But once you affiliate with a group, now you get tagged on with anything they do. Nah, see, no. Be one unto oneself. Especially these days, all these groups, they all have their own agendas that they utilize and usurp legitimate claims, right? Legitimate movements for their own means, for their own agenda. So anyway, I just wanted to point out, there has been a hands-off, standby situation with Antifa and even with Proud Boys, allowing them to battle out with these groups. Okay, they were complicit with the Capitol police besiegers, right? But BLM, they beat the shit out of. They fuck pepper spray, they run down. And there is a clear-cut distinction. So that's why I'm just all right, I'm not sure why you guys keep pointing out BLM when BLM isn't the thing. There's a clear distinction made once you point out three of them. You need three. You need the third. You need Antifa in this. They walk away from Antifa. They helped the Capitol besiegers, and now you can look at BLM and just at that point, it is inarguable. Now, we'll read in a moment about how the Pentagon had a lowered stance regarding the Capitol Police Department and the National Guard, and so that definitely played into why the Capitol Police Department response was limited at best. But again, I saw complicity. I saw assistance being handed out. Yeah, sure, okay, but again, it's one thing to suggest that they were supposed to be lenient or supposed to, have their discretion be tempered down a few notches, because apparently Capitol Police are supposed to be these fucking renegade thugs. That's one thing. But again, when motherfuckers are removing barricades and assisting people out of the building and down the stairs, no, miss me with that, especially when you're taking selfies. So yeah, we live in reality, and in reality, that is helping people. That's not getting out of the way of an oncoming stampede. That's assistance. So also back in reality, Capitol riot aftermath pictures says Newsweek video show widespread destruction. We'll read in a moment, but they apparently put dookie. They dookied on the place. Shattered glass, damaged furniture, and a ransacked office left in disarray from the scene of the aftermath of the riots in Washington, D.C., according to images and videos shared on social media. The violent protests on Wednesday saw supporters of Trump storm the Capitol in protest of the certification of the 2020 election. In a video shared on Twitter by Ali Sazlov, a reporter for CNN, showed the ransacked office of the Senate parliamentarian. Video news footage from News Nation Now, shared by Austin Kellerman, he's the director of digital content for Nexstar, also captured the impact of the office raid, with papers scattered everywhere and items abandoned, including an American flag and a Stop the Steal sign from the protest. Sorry, listeners, but we're looking at a picture, the viewers and I. As described, it is a ransacked office. The papers everywhere. The entire thing is disheveled. Seats all in the middle of the aisle. I mean, it just looks like a torrent of wind went through the place. But it isn't like things are set on fire or damaged proper. It's just really just all the papers are tossed and strewn about. So I mean, it's a mess for sure. But I'm waiting to see the dookie. In one corner of the building was an abandoned large cloth sign, while another area had empty plastic water bottles and other items left at the base of the statues, according to images below. There's a bunch of fire extinguishers along a wall and a flag that says treason. It's kind of ad hoc put together. The flag and the lettering, the flag red, the lettering white looks well, but it's attached to a bent flagpole. You do what you gotta do. Crystal Hayes, a reporter for USA Today, noticed there was glass everywhere. I'm inside the Capitol for USA Today. The aftermath of Trump rioters storming the building is jarring glass everywhere, dust blankets on the ground, broken benches turned on their side, used medical kit with an IV and AED machine that was used on a woman who was squeezed in the chaos. I mean, yes, there's. Well, see, the thing is, it's a close up of. I mean, yeah, there's glass. Oh, okay. That's some damage. Yeah. There's these pews that have been tossed about, windows smashed. There's just oddly enough a Dasani bottle on top of this pile of glass. I guess the cleanup guys put it there. So yeah, wanton destruction. And also when those on the right, quote unquote, talk about Democrats not condemning violence. I mean, they have. It's not that all of them have. And also, while some of them simultaneously condemn the violence, people like Maxine Waters were calling for violence against Republican politicians. If you recall, when Republicans were being hounded in restaurants and outside their homes and things like that, very similar to Democrat representatives now being hounded during the lockdown outside their homes or caught at restaurants or chilling at their vacation homes. I mean, it goes one way, it goes the other. There's this article I was reading about partisan, right? Here we go. Party supporters shift views to match their partisan stances. It's an article that describes when a party overall changes their stance on something, their denizens, their constituents, the representatives, the people that are a part of the party change their stances, which means that the party setting the tone. Well, that was the deal, because what we've seen now with progressive movements recently winning in the 2020 election is that populist movements are kind of setting the pace now, for the first time, at least in my lifetime. Populist progressive movements. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But what I was talking about earlier with the Pentagon and the stand down, the Pentagon put significant restrictions on D.C. Guard ahead of pro-Trump protests. Now, if you remember, we read the article, I think, yesterday. 329 National Guardsmen were mobilized 2 days or day and a half, 2 days ahead of time. So it's not like they didn't have Guard on the ready. The article that we'll read will detail that the Guard had a hands-off mission that was designated only to like traffic orientation, okay? The day reads, the Pentagon placed significant restrictions on the D.C. Guard ahead of pro-Trump protests this week, putting the district's military force in a backseat role ahead of events that resulted in an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. An insurrection is to be successful in order for it to be an insurrection. It was an attempted insurrection. In memos issued on January 4th and 5th, the Pentagon prohibited the district's guardsmen from receiving ammunition or riot gear, interacting with protesters unless necessary for self-defense, sharing equipment with local law enforcement, or using guard surveillance or air assets without the defense secretary's explicit sign-off. So this goes all the way up to the SecDef. We'll get to that in a second. According to officials familiar with the orders, the district guard was also told it would be allowed to deploy a quick reaction force only as a measure of last resort. The need for higher level approval appeared to have slowed the military response when the Capitol Police, the law enforcement force that reports to Congress and protects the House and Senate, requested backup from 200 troops during a call with the top Pentagon official early Wednesday. So they had more than enough at the ready, The Capitol Police hadn't asked for Guard backup in anticipation of the protests, which Donald Trump supported to stop congressional certification of President Joe Biden's victory. Guard units arrived roughly 2.5 hours after the chief of police made the emergency request, even though a quick reaction force had been put on standby outside the city limits, said one of the officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity. The Defense Department was able to restrict the district guard because the military force answers to the president rather than the mayor, as the district is not a state. The president's power over the district guard is typically delegated to the defense secretary, then the army secretary, who makes command decisions. Officials said the restrictions on the district guard were put in place in part because the city and Pentagon leadership didn't want a large military presence after Trump ordered a mass military response to racial justice protests in the nation's capital this summer, prompting a public outcry when military helicopters flew low over protesters, surveillance assets hovered above the city, and residents were left with a sense that the district was being occupied or was under siege. A U.S. defense official said the military always issues memos outlining the parameters of any mission. The restrictions added ahead of Wednesday's events made sense, the official said, given the district mayor Bowser requested the deployment of only a small contingent of some 340 guardsmen, primarily to control traffic and monitor metro stations. All commanders have left and right limits. There are no such thing as carte blanche, said the official. The official also said when the mission changed Wednesday afternoon, the Pentagon provided more forces than were requested, bringing in guard units from outside states and loosening the restrictions. But the initial restrictions and the unique command structure of the District Guard may have made it more difficult for authorities to quickly send the guardsmen to aid Capitol Police. The District Guard is housed in the Armory about 10 minutes' drive from the Capitol. So close. The delay in response prompted panicked lawmakers to call high-up officials at the Pentagon and in nearby states asking for military force to be sent. The governors of Maryland and Virginia expressed concern Wednesday about what they described as a delay in reaction by the Defense Department. On Thursday, Maryland Governor Hogan, a Republican, said he received a call from House Majority Leader Stine Hoyer, who said he was in a secure location with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. I was actually on the phone with Hoyer, who was pleading with us to send the guard. He was yelling across the room to Schumer that they were back and forth, saying, "We do have the authorization," and I'm telling you, we do not have the authorization. Unbelievable. So the thing that interests me is the chain of command there. So it goes up to the president, but it's delegated to the Secretary of Defense and then subsequently the Army generals who make on-the-ground command decisions. So my question then is, ahead of, the rally and what could have possibly been, hypothetically been, what it turned out to be, why didn't Trump convene with the SecDef to, you know what I mean? Like, here's the thing. We can alleviate Trump of only so much, right? So the article talked about the Pentagon had determined that this was the case. The Pentagon and the Department of Defense had determined that they didn't like the optics of having the military on the ground. I get that. You kind of figure that, especially since, like they described, when the president sent the military as a response to what was going on with consistent protests and the chaos that ensued, it wasn't good optics, and it didn't look well and only actually infuriated people further. So I understand that again to a degree. However, they are unarmed. They are only guiding traffic. They're not supposed to interact with protesters. They weren't given any sort of backup for 2.5 hours, even though they had backup 10 minutes away. It almost kind of reminds me of the response to 9/11, right? Where the confusion not only of the chain of command and the order of operations that were going on, partially because there was a change in how the chain of command was recently, and partially because there were multiple exercises going on. But I digress. I don't want to get into that. But it reminds me of that, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute, guys. Why would you have this set up this way with this event going on, like this event up ahead? Obviously, no one knew 9/11 was going to happen. Right, that's a different conversation altogether. But with this upcoming rally and the electoral college, the electoral votes being certified, why wouldn't the first thought in your head, no matter who you are up and down the chain, be we need to increase security? And then furthermore, why would then the Pentagon, like, okay, that's Trump's fault, but why would the Pentagon remove weapons, or order them to only delegate traffic, et cetera, et cetera? And then on top of that, we have the complicity of the Capitol Police. So it is just a multi-layered failure of both duplicity and complicity. Oh, right. And so we're going to move on here to the man who broke into Pelosi's office. He's charged with 3 federal counts. No, here we go. I want to do this. I want to do the poop first. We're going to do the poop first. So forward listeners, viewers, and I are watching these guys. And by the way, these brilliant procedures are also the same people who did this completely unmasked with no attempt at all to hide their identities in one of these, like, allegedly most secure buildings in the country. These guys, they're tossing a door out of a window. This is idiocy. But what we'll read on in a bit is that some actual, I don't want to say effective, but more efficient use of this siege took place, other than just defacing, vandalizing, and thieving random tokens. Some serious espionage might have happened here. So let's read. New York Post. Rioters left feces, urine in hallways and offices during mobbing of U.S. Capitol. They turned the U.S. Capitol into a crap house. New York Post, always elegant. Some invading rioters defiled the hallowed seat of democracy with their dung in their ill-fated effort to overturn the election, a source close to incoming Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told the Post. Congressional staffers saw feces in the hallways, the source said. The vile vandals apparently took dumps in bathrooms and then spread around their poop, said Schumer. Whatever. It came from the bathroom and they tracked it around. There was an intentional effort to degrade the Capitol building. Rep. Hakeem Jeffries of Brooklyn reported that some members of the mob urinated on the floors. There was urine. There was clear desecration. Jeffries said Rep. Hoyer had a poster board memorial tribute to late civil rights icon Representative John Lewis on the wall in his office. That was missing. It was in an area where protesters had clearly penetrated. Although authorities are trying to get to the bottom of who stormed the Capitol and caused widespread vandalism, breaking windows and damaging property as they infiltrated offices and posed for selfies. The assault on the building turned deadly when a Capitol police officer shot and killed Ashley Babbitt, a 35-year-old Air Force vet who was among those who broke into the building. Police said 3 other people died from medical emergencies, and Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick died in the hospital Thursday after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the riots. Wow. So 5 people died. I actually am just literally now on the air reading about that and hearing about that. Wow, that is unfortunate. Let's just check this out for a second. Capitol Police Officer dies after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. An officer died when he was hit in the head. Yeah. Brian Sicknick collapsed when he returned to his division office Wednesday and was taken to the hospital where he died. She said Sicknick was injured while physically engaging with protesters. 2 sources told the Times the officer had been struck with a fire extinguisher. That was pretty much it. Over 50 officers with the Capitol Police and Metro PD were injured. The chaos in the halls of the historic legislative building led to the death of Ashley Babbitt. Yeah. Oh my God, and the body count continues. Okay, so man who allegedly broke into Pelosi's office charged with 3 federal counts. Richard Barnett, the man who allegedly broke into Nancy Pelosi's office, posed for pictures, and stole mail from her desk, was arrested Friday morning in Little Rock, Arkansas, has been charged with 3 federal counts. I just want to continue to point out, like, these guys it seems like they had no rhyme or reason as to what they ruled. Most of them. Some of them, excuse me, some of them had automatic or semi-automatic rifles and Molotov cocktails. Okay, so this is why it's critical to kind of point out, like, yeah, there was wanton abandon and there was macabre and chaos, but also there seems to have been like a concerted effort on the part of some people, ergo the guy with the weapons and the Molotov cocktails and the whoever it was that hit the Capitol police officer and killed him, right? There was definitely intent to do something other than just piss and poop all over the halls of Congress. So, despite the fact that it seems like for the most part it was just it was just idiocy, there's definitely other intent there. Definitely other intent there, at least for some. But to continue, the Richard Barnett allegedly entered the restricted area and took photographs with his feet propped up on the furniture. It's that guy. Yeah, I figured. Barnett, who goes by the name Big O, was captured in news media photographs and took an envelope off of Pelosi's desk addressed to Rep. Billy Long, the complaint says. He was charged with entering a restricted building, violent entry, and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, and stealing public property. The shocking images of Mr. Barnett with his boots up on the desk of Pelosi's office was repulsive. West Virginia state Republican lawmaker Derek Evans was also charged with illegal entry after he allegedly recorded himself in a video entering the Capitol. And this is a state lawmaker. And this is a state lawmaker who is He was so unintelligent that he actually filmed it. Yeah, and there were other people who filmed themselves live on Instagram. On Wednesday, Robert County, the Metro Police Chief, said there were Molotov cocktails found in the cooler of a truck. On Friday, Lonnie Kaufman was arrested for allegedly possessing them. While K-9 units were searching for explosives at the RNC and DNC, they got a hit on what allegedly was Kaufman's truck, and upon approaching the truck, they saw the handle of a gun that was ultimately recovered from the passenger seat. Officers also allegedly recovered 11 mason jars containing an unknown liquid with a golf tee on the top of each jar, cloth rags, and lighters. Upon finding these materials, bomb technicians observed that the items appear to be consistent with components for an explosive or incendiary device known as a Molotov cocktail. It's very technical. Kaufman was sitting in the passenger seat of someone else's car and asked officers whether the bombs from the RNC and DNC were cleared, according to the complaint. Oh, clever. Officers then asked his name, and he said it was Lonnie. They then detained him because his matched the name of the owner of the truck. After further questioning, he was arrested. What an idiot. Why would you use... Oh, my God. This is what I mean. These aren't the most clever people. This does not scream like military stratagem. Okay? He was smart enough to be in a car on the other side of the road, across the street from a car with the contraband. And when the cop comes over, he's like, "Yeah, man, did you guys clear the bombs? I heard there's bombs." And so the cop asked him his name. And for some reason, he felt the need to give him the name tied to the truck. Why would you do that? Unbelievable. So they got him. After further questioning, he was arrested when they found a handgun and in his pocket the keys to the truck with the cocktails. It is alleged that it contained 11 cocktails and firearms. Kaufman is not believed to be a suspect in the placement of pipe bombs outside the RNC and DNC, but he was charged Friday with possession of an unregistered firearm and carrying a pistol without a license. Christopher Michael Alberts was one of the protesters who stormed the Capitol and was slow in responding to orders to leave. That is when Capitol Police, quoted in the complaint, said he noticed Alberts' handgun in his hip and was wearing a bulletproof vest and a backpack. Alberts tried to flee when officers noticed the weapon, but they detained him quickly. So these guys, this is what I mean. Some of these people were armed and ready to go. Let's do this. A black Taurus G2C 9mm was recovered. Additionally, a separate magazine was located on his hip. Both the gun and the spare magazine were held in two separate holsters. The handgun had one round in the chamber, with a 12-round capacity magazine filled with 12 rounds. The spare magazine also had a 12-round magazine and was filled with 12 rounds. MPD officers seized a gas mask and a backpack containing a pocket knife, one MRE, and one first aid medical kit. Yeah, he had a round in the chamber. I'm surprised that that's not a separate charge other than just the firearm charge. Mark Leffingwell was in the Capitol building and attempted to push past the officers who secured a barrier. But he didn't have any weapons. We just want to know about the guys with the weapons. Excuse me. No. Okay, so that was it. But other than guys with weapons, firearms and incendiaries and the like, a laptop was actually stolen from Pelosi's office. And what's interesting is that it does, and I was watching Tim Pool. I watched Tim Pool. Shout out Tim Pool. And he made a very valid argument about social engineering and using human intelligence, right? So you don't necessarily need to gather state secrets in order to gather effective information to use against Nancy Pelosi. Whether it be, the schedule of a meeting that she's having with other representatives, because it also gives, the perpetrator the scheduling for at least one time frame, one meeting for other representatives that she's meeting. In her personal life, people can impersonate the senders or the subjects of an email and fucking kidnap her. Like, it leaves a whole litany, a whole variety of opportunity for things. But let's read here. Reuters says a laptop was stolen from the office of Nancy Pelosi during the storming of the Capitol. Drew Hamill, an aide for Pelosi, said on Twitter that the laptop belonged to a conference room and was used for presentations. He declined to say anything else. The theft of the device from the office has been a persistent worry following the invasion. They were encouraged by Trump at a rally beforehand to march to the Capitol while Congress was certifying Joe Biden's win. Senator Jeff Merkley, a Democrat, said on Twitter that a laptop was taken from his office. On Thursday, acting U.S. Attorney Michael Sherwin said that some of the thefts might have potentially jeopardized what he described as national security equities. So it wasn't just Pelosi. We don't know the extent of the damage at this point, he said. The demonstrators who broke into the Capitol posted several photographs of themselves using congressional phones and various other devices. They didn't just do that. They were on Instagram Live making a call, and there was, oh my God, I forgot who it was. Actually, I don't know who it was at all, but I forgot who they wanted to call. But they were on the congressional phone dialing up someone's number. And it's like, good God, now you're creating a trail, right? They will follow that number back, and it just traces it back and is like, excuse me, did you receive a call from Capitol Hill on Wednesday? Or did you receive a call from a federal number? Yes. Who are you? Where? Yeah. Okay. Where do you live? Oh, you don't want to tell us? Well, we already know. We just wanted to confirm any information that you may or may not tell. You know what I mean? It's a wrap. The demonstrators took several photographs. One reporter with the right, that was a mistake, with the right wing outlet Blaze posted a photograph of what purported to be a computer from Pelosi's office with emails still on the screen. What else might have been taken during the chaos is not yet known. Some information technology experts worry that the intruders may have planted malicious software on computers, although it's not clear that devices were the focus of any particular attention. And that's another thing. If they were able to take laptops, they were definitely in a position then to implant things as well. Bugs and the like, malicious software and the like. So who knows at this point? That's what I was more interested in, and I think that for me definitely points more over to planning. Not to suggest that the planning of the siege was done by some sort of espionage asset or anything like that, but I am saying that all cards are on the table. Like we've seen time and time again, especially through the 90s and into the 2000s, the utilization of protests and political movements for other things. As this continues to unfold and we get more information as other things happen, for all we know, in the coming weeks, we may get a giant WikiLeaks type dump of who knows what. But we do know that they were more than just wanton idiots with no plan of action amongst them, that there were those with violent intentions that had the means and the motivation to do so, and there were those who penetrated into sensitive areas and took sensitive items with potentially sensitive information. So, to continue the fallout of the siege of Capitol Hill, the besieging, Pelosi asks Joint Chiefs about preventing Trump from launching nukes. So, like I said, well, not necessarily about Trump. There's more. I've been more talking about the stranglehold that's going to be on the freedom of information and expression. But as a result of this, also, what's going to be happening is that the huge walkaway is going to happen. No one's going to wait until the last moment or wait till he walks, he himself leaves. Everybody's abandoning ship. You have people on his cabinet. You have people talking about the 25th Amendment. You now have Pelosi, questioning his mental health. Not to suggest that there's no reason to. But this is what's happening. The fallout is great, and that chasm continues to widen for sure. Somehow, incredibly enough, as if it couldn't anymore. So let's read here. The president is unhinged, and the nation must be protected from him, Pelosi wrote. House Speaker Pelosi spoke with the nation's top military officer on Friday about precautions in place to prevent Donald Trump from ordering a nuclear strike or conducting other military hostilities as Democrats seek his removal. The stunning revelation came in a letter from the Speaker to House Democrats outlining next steps following a violent breach of the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday. Pelosi said she spoke to Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley about guardrails in place that could prevent an unstable president from wielding the military or the country's nuclear arsenal. This morning, I spoke to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs to discuss available precautions for preventing an unstable president from initiating military hostilities or accessing the launch codes and ordering a nuclear strike. The situation of this unhinged president could not be more dangerous, and we must do everything that we can to protect the American people from his unbalanced assault on our country and our democracy. So, we're at this point now where the profile created, or the profile now that is going to be written forevermore about Trump, is that he is an unhinged pseudo-dictator who attempted a coup at the end of his administration. So that anyone who may even have anything statistically positive to say can be just dismissed. And this is the thing. It begins with Facebook banning any posts and or anyone who was supportive of the siege. Not that I'm supportive of that type of language or position, but I mean, I don't necessarily. I think that's just because here's the thing. Here's a great example. Like Cory Bush's bill introduced to try and expel any representative that supported election challenges, right? All of the headlines read, Cory Bush introduces bill to expel any representative that supported Capitol Hill violence, which isn't the bill at all. But now the narrative will be to amalgamate the two together. Something that has legal ramifications and significance versus wanton chaos and violence are two separate things, but now they will be amalgamated and they will become one. And no longer will people be able to speak in any way, shape, or form or context about it. And therein lies the problem. If you do not speak about the particular subject in a particular way, you are dismissed and or banned. Therein lies the issue. You should be able to discuss the matter openly. Right? It reminds me of the face that people make when people say something like, Hitler was a great orator. And it's like, oh my God, that's disgusting. It's like, well, obviously he was. He had to be effective enough to lead an entire nation into hell. Like, that's just reality. You're like, well, what the fuck? What was wrong with you? When did we become so detached from the relevant information? Like, when did we stop detaching relevant information versus how we feel about said information? We all of a sudden are now unable to hear uncomfortable truths. But I digress. Mitch McConnell reportedly never wants to speak to Trump again. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. So it's big and personal now. I remember reading an article about the personal lives of the Trumps post-administration. And how their rich friends are already beginning to distance themselves. There's going to be nowhere on the planet this man can go. It kind of reminds me of like towards the end of the Bush administration when different like Vermont issued a arrest warrant for Donald Rumsfeld and George Bush because of the Iraq War and war crimes. Let's just read this real quick. Mitch said he never wants to speak to Donald Trump again after Trump incited a violent insurrection. The Kentucky Republican has reportedly been estranged from Trump in recent weeks, and he gave a fiery speech on the Senate floor rejecting the president's continued claims of voter fraud. Mitch has said he never wants to speak to Trump again. The president has been accused of inciting the riot by urging his supporters at a rally Wednesday to fight and march to the Capitol, where Congress was counting electoral votes. Trump has spent months spinning throngs. I just want to read about because there's no article there. Like Mitch said, he never wants to speak to Trump again. That's the article. All the rest of this is just inciting the narrative. But then Trump then told Pence, "I don't want to be your friend," after the vice president refused to block Biden's electoral certification. You have to laugh. Trump has long benefited from Pence, but Trump may have pushed Pence too far by repeatedly demanding that he try to block the certification of Biden's presidential win. That, combined with Trump's moves to rile up his supporters before they breach the Capitol, seems to have exposed a chasm within their partnership. Pence is said to be angry with Trump, but has yet to agree to invoking the 25th, a possible but perhaps unlikely way to remove Trump from power. VP Pence has been between a rock and a hard place and an angry commander-in-chief as Trump has finally turned on one of his most loyal allies. Top aides have said Trump has been spiraling out of control for weeks, but now he's directed much of his ire towards the vice president. Earlier this week, Pence is said to have endured a lunch with Trump in which he tried to explain that he lacked the authority to block the certification. Further, in a letter Wednesday, he told Trump It is my considered judgment that my oath to support the Constitution constrains me from claiming unilateral authority to determine which votes should be counted and which should not. A source told the Journal that the president was furious, telling Pence, "I don't want to be your friend. I want you to be the vice president." Overtures of friendship may have not mattered as much to Pence after Wednesday, when Trump seemed to try to turn his supporters on the VP. "Pence is going to have to come through for us," he told a crowd, "and if it doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country." So then Biden then calls Trump unfit, but he does not endorse impeachment. This is all really now about creating a narrative where no one can say anything about anything other than what's been said. Not that what's being said is necessarily wrong, but it's definitely a depiction from a particular standpoint. And I don't think because I'd like for articles to flesh out more of the Pentagon's involvement in this. Like I want to know where the SecDef politically stands if he was the one that had the authority to change the mission of the National Guard and to have them stand down, to have them not be armed. But Biden said Friday that Trump isn't fit for the job, but he repeatedly refused to endorse calls for impeachment. Speaker Pelosi said in a letter to members of her chamber that lawmakers could move as early as next week to impeach Trump for inciting violence that overran the Capitol if the president did not immediately resign. Pelosi and Chuck Schumer seem to also have called on VP and the cabinet to invoke the 25th, a process for stripping the president of his post. That's about it. Yeah, short statements lead to short articles. But yeah, of course he's going to say he's unfit. So the fallout from the cabinet continues to happen. We had the Transportation Secretary Chow leave. Next, we have Murkowski. She is the first GOP senator to ask for Trump's resignation. So now in the coming days, you'll have more get on that bandwagon. GOP Senator, The Hill says, Lisa Murkowitz, said Friday she believes Trump should resign, becoming the first Senate Republican to call for him to step down. "I want him to resign. I want him out. He's caused enough damage," Murkowitz told Anchorage News. Murkowski's comments came 2 days after the event. Trump, who has since said he will support an orderly transfer of power, has issued unsupported claims for weeks that everything was rigged. Murkowski also appeared to acknowledge that Trump is unlikely to resign, even as House Democrats appear poised to impeach him for a second time, and that'll take too long. And there's growing calls for Pence and the cabinet to invoke the 25th. I think he should, because here's the thing: if Pence invokes the 25th, his own base is probably going to feel like he's abandoning them. They're going to feel like that's a step too far. But everybody wants him to go. Murkowski is the only Senate Republican who has said that they believe Trump should resign over the riots, though Senator Ben Sasse signaled that he was open to considering impeachment if articles are passed in the House. Other GOP senators, while not defending Trump, have suggested they are eager to move on and have dismissed Trump's calls for Trump to be impeached. Less than 2 weeks left in his term. Spokespeople for Murkowski didn't immediately respond to a question about if she would support impeachment to remove Trump. Next, the Silicon left continues its censorious march towards the Orwellian present that is our future. Gotta do a stretch here, do a little yawn. Sorry about that. Twitter permanently bans Trump. What a surprise. The president's preferred megaphone is bye-bye. Twitter permanently banned him on Friday, days after a pro-Trump mob did the deed. After a close review of recent tweets from the Trump account, the context around them, we have permanently suspended the account due to risk of further incitement of violence. The ban comes after the president was at a rally that led to the deed. Twitter initially put a 12-hour ban on Trump's account for repeated and severe violations of our civic integrity policy after he posted messages repeating lies that the election was stolen. His lies. At the time, Twitter said Trump would be banned permanently if he continued to violate its rules, including those around civic integrity or violent threats. He never threatened violence. That's the one thing he never threatened. Twitter said in a statement that 2 new tweets posted since Trump's initial suspension violated the platform's rules, prompting permanent suspension. Due to ongoing tensions and an uptick in the global conversation in regards to the people who violently stormed the Capitol, these 2 tweets must be read in the context of broader events, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Earlier Friday, more than 300 Twitter employees signed an internal petition calling for Trump to be permanently banned. Facebook has put an indefinite ban that would last at least to Inauguration Day. Yeah. But they also suspended Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell, Queen of the Kraken, who I think I was just reading Dominion is going to sue Sidney Powell. Yeah, Dominion, yeah. Oh boy, over defamation, that's what you get. You're not providing that Kraken, that proof. I mean, and the thing is that if you just spoke about the things that you could speak about, that like the adjudication logs and things like that, use the ASOG report, you might have had a chance. But Twitter permanently banned Michael Flynn and pro-Trump lawyer Sidney Powell and former Administrator Administrator Ron Watkins as part of a crackdown on content linked to the QAnon conspiracy theory. The QAnon conspiracy theory? Aren't there multiple conspiracy theories related to QAnon? A spokesperson for the platform told The Hill that each of the individuals were banned in line with Twitter's policy against harmful coordinated activity. Harmful coordinated activity. This is what I mean. By simply saying something, by simply expressing a counter narrative, all simultaneously, it is considered harmful activity. And this therein lies my problem, right? Unless you call for violence, simply expressing a contrary idea should not be considered harmful. Okay? We are increasingly, and that's another reason why I started the podcast now. The time is now. Because if I wait another year, another half a year, who knows what I may or may not be able to say or express. At least I can get this out while I still can. But I digress. Flynn, President Trump's first national security advisor, has been one of the most visible QAnon supporters with close ties to the administration, posting a video of himself reciting one of its oaths last summer. Powell, who led Trump's unsuccessful attempts to overthrow the results of the election, was sued for $1.3 billion earlier for spreading misinformation about Dominion voting systems. Whoa. Watkins, who was also a key figure spreading falsehoods about the voting company, his former platform hosts posts by Q, the anonymous figure, who posts the cryptic message that serves as the foundation of the theory. What is the theory? What is the theory? That's what I mean, the QAnon theory. What is the theory? Supporters of the theory. This and that of the theory. Here we go. Followers of the QAnon conspiracy theory believe baselessly that Trump is working to expose a shadowy cabal of elites in democratic politics and the media running underground child trafficking rings. I mean, he's talked about way more than that, this QAnon guy. It is unbelievably shallow of a description. But you know what? That's okay. We're gonna call it early today. Because it's Friday, we're going to enjoy ourselves, and Monday I'll come back to this. We covered AOC's whatnot, so we did that. But Apple has threatened to ban Parler, so we'll cover that, and we'll cover some scientific articles about negative partisanship, right, and how holding on so tightly to the party partisanship, within the respective groups, GOP or Democrats, is stymieing people from inhabiting new ideas and actual change happening. And then we'll get to a little coronavirus stuff. But yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. If you like what I'm doing, be well to yourself and to each other. Take care.